AVX 512. It's an ISA that most computer nerds are at least aware of or have heard of before, which can't be said for a lot of other x86 extensions. From the initial MMX Pentium days to the current AVX 512 implementations we see today, SIMD instruction sets have come a long way since their initial inception in the 1960s. But despite their relative popularity, it's still not really well understood all that well as to what it is and what kind of performance boosts it enables. Let's dig into the Advanced Vector extension, and take a look at the architecture of the ISA and see how we can program for it. Alright, so I just wanted to preface this video with the fact that this was supposed to come out like a year ago. I got busy with school and other projects, so it just went on the back burner for a while, and since then I've upgraded to a non-AVX 512 supporting chip. So the code you'll be seeing was written a while ago, and the benchmarks taken are also from the same time period. AVX2 doesn't provide as large of a speedup as AVX 512, but it would still provide a massive speedup, especially in the functions being tested. Let's dig into what the AVX instruction set is and see how it allows for performance speedups. First, it's important to know what it is on a technical level. Using all the technical jargon, AVX is a SIMD or Single Instruction Multiple Data extension to the x86-64 instruction set architecture. What this means in practical terms is that it's a chain of adders used to apply single operations to multiple numbers at a time. If we think of things in a traditional scalar sense, in which something like a CPU operates on one thing at a time in a very pipeline fashion, you're doing a single operation at a time on a single piece of data. On the other extreme, something like a GPU can handle thousands of different operations at any given moment on thousands of different numbers. SIMD instruction sets, such as AVX, can be thought of to fall somewhere in the middle, where you're still carrying out a single operation at a time, but you're applying that operation to multiple numbers instead of just one. For example, let's say I have a CPU that can perform a single double precision floating point operation per second, meaning that it can take two operands and provide a single result. Let's also assume that the memory functions are performed prior to doing these mathematical operations and the data is already prefetched into the registers, just to simplify the model. This means that per clock cycle, I can apply one mathematical instruction and get one result. Now let's introduce a new instruction set that provides SIMD functionality. This instruction set can still do only one instruction per clock cycle, but can apply this operation to two double precision floating point numbers at a time instead of just one. This is heavily oversimplified, but in hardware you have to keep in mind that doing this means you also need to roughly double the amount of circuitry to process double the amount of numbers. However, what you're cutting out by going with a SIMD design is additional instruction decoders, which eat up a lot of die space and power off the core rails. Let's say I want to perform an addition operation on all 8 elements of an array in memory. There's a couple different ways I could approach things. The first is to just utilize all cores on a die in parallel and issue 8 different instructions to 8 different cores. Or I can issue a single SIMD instruction to a single core and perform 8 of the same calculations on different numbers across 8 adders in the core. At the end of the day, if performed properly, the answer should be the same and you could theoretically get more raw calculation horsepower per core. What this originally was used for was speeding up image processing, which uses low bit depth integers which don't require adders that are super wide. However, given the fact that CPUs have been able to process 64-bit integers for decades now, for every 8-bit RGBA pixel value that you process, you're wasting another 7 bytes worth of computational horsepower in the adder. The theory was, and still is for the most part, to take the image pixel data shuffling and processing off the main ALUs and on to strip down and chain together integer adders, leaving the main core open for more pertinent tasks. The OG SIMD instruction set that most people probably remember is Intel's MMX, which stands for Multimedia Extension, and was used for streaming and transforming pixel data. However, if you try to use the MMX intrinsics in C, you'll notice that the M64 unions used to store the values for processing is restricted to integer data types. With more modern ISAs, like the topic of this video, AVX and SSE, floating point capabilities now exist, as well as the width of the registers and adders being increased. From the original 64-bit or 8-byte wide MMX registers to the modern day 512-bit or 64-byte wide AVX 512 registers, CPUs nowadays are built to handle throughput similar to the original MMX but with much wider and more complicated data types. Just for example, Intel MMX can process either 8-bit signed or unsigned characters, 16-bit signed or unsigned shorts, 32-bit signed or unsigned integers, and 64-bit signed or unsigned longs. AVX 512 Foundation includes capabilities to process the same data types as MMX, but also includes FP32 and FP64 support, as well as bfloat16 if your specific processor supports it. This increased breadth of data types can come in handy for situations such as scientific compute, where you're dealing with something like an atomic simulation where you need to be able to use down to like the 10th decimal place. This means that FP32 won't provide you the precision that you're looking for, and you need to use double precision FP64. GPUs, while they can handle such high precision numbers, generally aren't equipped with many FPUs that are capable of operating on such large floating point data types. Just for reference, my old RTX 3070 Ti delivered roughly 340 gigaflops worth of FP64 compute, while offering 20 plus teraflops of FP32 and FP16. The CPU though is built to handle these larger floating point data types, and with AVX 512 you can process 8 of these high precision doubles per instruction issued per core. If you theoretically scaled across all cores, you can outperform the 3070 Ti when it comes to these double precision calculations. And assuming you properly cache and vector load, your performance improvement can range from somewhat measurable but ultimately not world-changing to very measurable and vital to overall performance. To get an idea as to how you can incorporate these instructions into your program, let's dig into some code and show you exactly what I'm talking about. The first thing I think is important to mention is the fact that unless you're using assembly, you'll need to access this through including the immintrin header in your C or C++ program. From there we can access the M512, M512i, and M512d unions, where we'll load the numbers into and operate on them. In this example, I've created a variety of different functions utilizing a scalar execution path, and then the same function using AVX 512 intrinsics. They look different yet inherently similar, but functionally they accomplish the same tasks. I've also defined some vector structs such as 4 wide unsigned characters as well as 4 wide unsigned and signed integers and floats, just to simplify how we're accessing data. This will also come in handy when I get to an example of an image processing function, specifically for keeping track of pixel data and transparency. For now, let's focus on a simple function that takes 2 input vectors that are passed by reference, adds the elements, and stores the results in a third vector that we also pass by reference. This is what the integer add function declaration looks like in the header file within the defined scalar namespace. And then the AVX function will also have the same parameters and name, just in the AVX 512 namespace. Starting with the scalar function, we see that it's just a simple for loop where we increment through the elements one at a time, adding the corresponding elements from vector A and B, and then storing them in vector C. This is a fairly simple operation where the execution time scales roughly linearly with vector size, and can be thought of in traditional computer science big O notation as ON. Moving into the AVX function, we can see that we're also using a for loop to iterate through the vectors, however there's a difference that will save us a lot of performance. At the top of the function, you can see that we're defining the size of the data type, the size of the vectors we're iterating through, the elements remaining in the vectors, and then the increment, which is the width of the AVX 512 register in bytes divided by the data type size. We also need to declare 3 M512i unions to store our operands and results. Going further down, you'll see that we're still using a for loop, but note how we're incrementing the for loop by the increment we calculated previously in the function. Before we do any arithmetic, we first check to ensure that the amount of elements remaining is large enough to fit into the AVX unions, and if it's not, it just loops through using scalar addition. If the remaining number of elements is larger than or equal to the size of the AVX union, we then do a vector load, which can be seen as the MM512 load EPI32 intrinsic call, where we pass the current element location and load the next 64 bytes from the vector into the AVX 512 union. We repeat this with the second vector passed by reference, and then perform the actual add command using the MM512 add EPI32 intrinsic function. If you want to use AVX or SSE intrinsics in your own program, decoding what each function does is actually pretty simple. First, you'll notice that the functions all start with an underscore followed by an mm and then a number. The number will represent the width of the AVX union, but keep in mind that for basic MMX and SSE instructions, it's just with no numbers after. For AVX2, you can call functions that start with MM256, and for AVX 512, you'll call functions that start with MM512. After this, you'll see another underscore and then the command you'd like to perform. If you want to perform an add, then you would simply type add. Similarly, if you want to convert between data types, you would use CVT, and then type the abbreviated acronym for the current data type, which can easily be found online. No matter which type of function you're calling, the last bundle of letters and numbers before entering the specific parameter signifies either which data type that you would like to convert to, or which data type you're performing the operation on. Keep in mind that if you want to use a float, you'd simply type in PS, standing for pack singles, and for doubles you'd do PD. Looking at an entire function call, you can see that what this specific example reads as is AVX 512 load pack signed int 32. It's not the most intuitive thing in the world, but after a while you get used to reading the syntax. If you want to know what these intrinsic functions are, they're just a C wrapper for AVX assembly. And while I could go in to show exactly what the assembly looks like for these functions, for the purposes of this video, I think that sticking to C++ is more illustrative and intuitive for the majority of people. What we're doing under the hood though is calling vector instructions, which differ from scalar instructions in the ways that we discussed earlier in this video. They're generally wider, take up more die space, and use more power than scalar instructions. However, they do save power by allowing the CPU to perform several calculations at a time without looping, and also without additional power-expensive decoders. One thing that AVX 512 is known for though is making your CPU run hotter than it usually would. While on 14nm chips this was definitely true, on the 10 and 5nm chips that support it, power consumption is way more under control, and you're probably drawing more power simply because you're loading up all the cores and their associated circuitry. To actually prove that AVX instructions improve performance, let's run two tests. First, to show how synthetic workloads are impacted by including the SIMD instructions, I first wrote a simple vector addition program that adds two vectors first in a scalar fashion, and then using AVX 512 instructions. After that test, to see how it can improve a real-world workload, I incorporated it into an image axis addition algorithm that simply takes the RGBA values from an image and adds them along the X and Y axis. This can then be extracted to form a graph, which can help tell the machine where objects are. For the first test I ran, I gradually increased the length of the vector up from 4096 up until over 65,000. This is just doing a simple addition on the elements, and you can see that with scalar execution, the time it takes in nanoseconds scales pretty linearly with vector size. And looking at the AVX 512 execution times, things also scaled roughly linearly but with significantly improved processing times. This is measured in nanoseconds to help give a more granular idea as to how performance is impacted, but you can see that utilizing the AVX instructions really helps to cut down on the amount of loops that the CPU core has to iterate through. Scaling for this function appears to be much better than our next function, and I suspect this is due to the sheer simplicity of this one. We're simply loading, operating, and storing in a way that's very similar to a scalar pipeline, just with more pieces of data. Similarly, I ran a function that adds the RGBA elements of each pixel on a particular axis to be able to create a graph used for object identification. Each image is square and is comprised of n by n pixels. Starting with 1024 by 1024, you can see that execution time went from just under 36.4 microseconds with scalar execution time to just over 2.6 microseconds when utilizing AVX instructions, which is a 14x improvement. In a perfect world, you'd see processing times cut by a 16th, as that's how many elements the AVX 512 operation can handle. However, this doesn't occur in the real world because not everything happens in a single cycle. Sure, the algorithm may be performing a 64-byte wide vector load, theoretically improving performance by 16x when using 32-bit insert floats, but if it takes 2 cycles to perform the load and then 3 cycles for the operation to be carried out, you're already 3 instructions behind a perfect 1 IPC scalar pipeline. In reality, most chips actually achieve high IPC by pipelining their operations to keep all portions of it busy at any particular time. Or another thing they can do is operate on multiple pieces of data at a time to keep throughput high. Modern CPUs, for example, utilize both these techniques, as do GPUs to a much larger degree. This is why you don't see perfect 16x scaling when you go from a scalar execution path to an AVX 512 one. You can get pretty dang close, and I think close to 14x is pretty good for most workloads. Overall, the AVX, SSE, and MMX instruction sets included on almost all modern x86-64 CPUs allow for programmers to conduct computations in ways that allow for parallelization, or in this case vectorization, of computations and data. To actually build software utilizing these instructions, you have to use a knowledge of data structures and basic vector data paths to build your software in a fundamentally different, but also inherently familiar way. You do all the same operations, load, store, add, subtract, multiply, etc. However, you're doing them on multiple numbers at a time instead of just one. The syntax looks a little different, and the loops look a bit more complicated, but once you see the performance results, things become a lot more interesting. There are tons of other ways to utilize AVX instructions in other programs as well, and if you utilize all the cores on a chip, you can get double precision floating point throughputs similar or superior to that found in a GPU. It's also way easier to program for an x86 CPU than it is to program for a GPU, and based on some quotes from Intel representatives, this is what they're going for. A simpler programming model than a GPU while also enhancing CPU performance to keep pace with the explosive performance improvements seen on the GPU side of things. It's an interesting set of instruction sets, and if you're looking to improve your calculation throughput, then AVX, SSE, and MMX instructions are a great way to enhance your performance without completely re-architecting your code. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and click the bell icon so you'll be notified about all our future uploads. Do you think that AVX instructions have a place in modern computing? Or do you think that GPUs will eventually take over this functionality, leaving it to be a pointless inclusion in modern x86 processors? That's all I really have to say on the matter. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.